Avery, whose show is this? And we're live. Welcome, everybody, here to the Lakers Lounge Podcast. I'm Anthony Irwin, Senior Lakers Insider and lead Lakers content creator for Offsides. And today on the show, we're going to be talking about the Lakers beating the New Orleans Pelicans and maintaining their spot with the fourth best record in the NBA. Something that is like simultaneously impressive, but also kind of maddening for a couple of reasons. But anyway, today on the show, we're going to talk about that win. I thought LeBron was incredible in that win, and as he continues to get his legs underneath him, and Antoine Willis appears to agree. It seems that LeBron has fully recovered from any lingering injuries. Knock on wood that remains the case. But yeah, LeBron looked incredible. Luka did just enough as well. I thought that it's become pretty apparent that LeBron and Luka have developed some chemistry while Austin Reeves has been out. So we'll talk about that as well. I thought that Jake LaRavia made a very interesting case for himself as the fifth starter, despite playing really poorly. I promise I'll explain that here in a bit as well. We'll talk about another clutch win and kind of how to balance out how annoying it might be that the Lakers have to win in the clutch against a team as bad as the Pelicans, but that it's also important to get those reps and to continue to be good in those reps. So yeah, there's a ton that we're going to get to over the course of the show. And on top of all of that stuff, I will answer your guys' questions, towards the tail end of it, depending on how my voice is holding up and how these allergies are treating me. So let's go ahead and dive on in while I still have a voice, while I have two open eyes, and while the vibes are still pretty good. So 111 to 103 was the final. And by the way, Happy New Year back at you, Antoine. But the Lakers beat the New Orleans Pelicans in New Orleans 111 to 103. They improved, the Lakers do, to 23-11. That was their 13th win on the road so far this season. I believe that is one off the pace of most road wins in the NBA so far this season. I think Denver has 14. The Pelicans, they dropped to 8-30. They are 6-17 at home. And I thought they played about as well in this game. The Pelicans did. I thought they played about as well in that game as they have in any game, basically, that they've played in so far this season, including some that they've won. Trey Murphy led the way, with everybody. He scored 42 points on 14 of 26 shooting from the field, 6 of 17 from three-point range, 8 of 9 from the free throw line. Clearly an audition game, I thought, from Trey Murphy. LeBron, as I said earlier, was, I thought, the best Laker kind of from start to finish. He finished with 30 points to go with 8 boards, 8 assists, a couple of steals, and a block. Luka also had 30 points. He had 30, 10 assists, only 2 rebounds, a couple of steals, and a block. Luka had 5 turnovers in this one. As far as plus minus goes, Marcus Smart led the way. He was a plus 14. Despite going, I thought one of actually the biggest stretches in the game was in that third period when Marcus Smart knocked down those 3 3-pointers to kind of not just keep the Lakers in the game, but let them crawl into a spot to where they were within striking distance heading into the fourth. And then, as we'll talk about him in a little bit, Jake LaRavia, he only had 5 points, only got 2, he only shot the ball 4 times in this game. 0 of 2 from 3-point range. Did have 5 boards, did have a couple of steals, was a net neutral in a game that the Lakers won. And yet, despite those kind of meager counting stats, I still was maybe not as impressed as I've been over the last couple of games. Remember, he combined for 46 points over the last 2 coming into this one. And the Lakers need that scoring ability if he is going to make a viable case to start over Rui. But I thought he did enough of the small stuff that, in a game that Rui would only score whatever it was, 5 points. I thought that Jake's floor or his baseline kind of proved itself out as much higher than Rui's. And I think that's something that starting group really needs. So we'll talk about all of that, starting with LeBron James. Again, 30 points, 8 boards, 8 assists, couple of steals, a block shot, only 1 turnover in this game. He had a couple of highlight plays. He stole the ball, had a breakaway, had a windmill dunk that didn't quite get the same extension that we're maybe used to with LeBron. But again, he's 41 years old. He caught a lob from Luka Doncic. Again, kind of evidence that those guys are kind of figuring some stuff out together as well. And then I thought was about as active defensively as we have really kind of seen him. And look, I was never beating the drum that this dude is just straight up washed. I will not do that until like an entire season plays out where and then at the end of it, you're like, yeah, that's kind of clear that he's kind of washed. And I think, not only did you get the 30 points from him in this one, but I thought he was particularly spry. I thought he was doing a really good job communicating throughout the game. Defensively, he was kind of daunted with the tough task of keeping Derek Queen and Zion Williamson off of the boards, something that is basically impossible for almost everybody to do. As it was, though, Zion only grabbed 4 rebounds. Derek Queen did grab 13. He was more of Ayton's kind of assignment on the boards. But overall, I thought, the Lakers basically told LeBron, hey, man, we're going to need you to kind of, deal with the physical force that is Zion Williamson. And I thought LeBron, for the most part, over the course of the game, really kind of kept Zion out of it. It's kind of interesting since Zion has come into the game, come into the league. LeBron has always taken that matchup somewhat personally. I don't think he dislikes Zion in any particular way, but remember when Zion was drafted and then when he came into the league, he was one of the more hyped young prospects since LeBron. And I always thought that LeBron always kind of wanted to poke and prod Zion to see if he was actually the heir apparent. Turns out he was not. And I thought he carried that forward into this game. So LeBron looked really, really good. Again, that chemistry with Luka Doncic is really exciting. And I am going to do that, super sports radio-y thing where I ask, was Austin Reeves getting hurt or missing a little bit of time here? Maybe the worst thing for the Lakers, and that combination of LeBron and Luka in particular, obviously would never want to see any Laker get hurt, any player get hurt for that matter. But of course, in particular, Lakers, you don't like Lakers injuries. But I do think that we have learned quite a bit about LeBron and Luka and some of the things and some of the pitches that the Lakers can rely on when those two are on the court together at the same time. I think that those two guys have developed taken a major step forward in their on and off court chemistry. With Austin out of the rotation. And look, like I'm the guy who, with Daman the other day said that I've been kind of disappointed with Luka for how quiet he has been as it pertains to, re-welcoming LeBron James back into the fold. Well, after the game, like literally right after the game tonight, right before we were getting ready to go live, Luka sends out or puts this out on his Instagram story, and it's a picture of LeBron. Um, and his stat line tonight, a graphic that the Lakers shared from their official account. And he's telling his fans, remember, fans who have voted to hit for him to the tune of, the most votes of any player so far this year. He's telling his fans, hey, vote also for LeBron. Like, let's get this guy out there in that All-Star game as well. And like I'm look, if I'm gonna sit here and say that I think it matters that he hadn't done this to this point, I'm gonna sit here and say that I think it really matters now that it's finally happened. So like again, like I'm not like celebrating the fact that Austin Reeves is hurt, and I can't wait to see him back out on the court. It's a real bummer that his injury seems to have cost him an appearance in the All-Star game. And all of that is, really kind of unfortunate. And it sucks that it appears that maybe this is what was necessary to get LeBron and Luka on the same page. I do think one thing that the Lakers have learned from all of this is that, just asking LeBron to do all the dirty work despite not ever really touching the basketball. I think that is probably a couple bridges too far for him. And I do think that, like, as Dominic and I talked about in that episode of the podcast, I do think that, the basketball carries energy. And by getting LeBron more involved in the offense more consistently over the course of the game, not just in minutes when Luka is not playing, I think by getting LeBron more involved over the course of the game, it has led to a greater engagement level in the other stuff, the kinds of things that the Lakers desperately need LeBron to be able to do. So, yeah, I think between like the same side post stuff that LeBron and Luka are doing, and between some of the off ball movement stuff that LeBron and Luka enable each other to be able to do, or allow each other to be able to do, between all of that and LeBron getting back to being, I like literally getting his legs underneath him and becoming more of the physical and athletic presence that the Lakers need him to be. I think we're seeing some really important progress here between those two guys. And as I've said all along, if the Lakers are going to sniff their, highest ceiling potential, it's going to happen because and only if LeBron and Luka are on the same page, from here on out. And, look, this is another win against a sub 500 team in the league. The New Orleans Pelicans, I believe, have the worst record in the West. And so all of those disclaimers and qualifiers, those things, do remain true. And it is worth noting all of those things. However, I would also say that, you know, it like the surest path to racking up wins is by not losing any of these games to inferior opponents. And the Lakers so far have done a pretty good job with that. And I do think as LeBron continues to get his legs underneath him, and as Luka hopefully and Luka and LeBron hopefully continue this kind of march towards the level of chemistry that we need to see from those guys, that will improve the Lakers record against sub 500 and maybe even elite basketball teams. Do I think that the Lakers are contenders as they're currently built? No, I don't think they are. But do I think that, LeBron and Luka and then hopefully Austin, whenever he comes back, have shown enough that, Rob Pelinka can't get away with that whole stupid needle mover leak that he offers up every single year? Absolutely. I think the Lakers have, again, they have the fourth best record in the league right now. I don't care who they have struggled against and who that record is built up by. When you have the fourth best record in the league, and you have LeBron and you have Luka and you have Austin, this is an opportunity for you to go out and do some meaningful postseason and late season winning. And yeah, I think that this latest development of LeBron and Luka gaining some chemistry together, that's the kind of thing that should land on Rob's front desk as like, hey, mother bleeper, do your job. The next thing I want to talk about here is Jake LaRavia. And I talked about this on Offside uh after the game. Offside, I do those. My apologies, everybody, by the way. I didn't do a pregame one. I did a pregame one. It is sitting there on my phone. But I sent it to Twitter and I sent it to Offside as I was pulling away from the house, and it never posted to either of those platforms. So my apologies to Offside and my apologies to you guys. I will make up for it. We have some cool stuff planned though for Offside, that hopefully we'll have going live here sometime soon. Now what I wanted to talk about here was, as it pertains to Jake LaRavia. And again, I talked about this on the Offside video, but Jake, as I've said, kind of since he's gotten into the starting lineup, he has become more of a practicality than before these few games when he was more of a theoretical presence. Um, I I love how active that dude is when he doesn't have the basketball and when he isn't scoring. Tonight, he couldn't throw a pea in the ocean, didn't look comfortable shooting. I thought that the game plan from the Pelicans, whenever they saw he was open, was to close out to him super hard. And then they also have the length and athleticism to really kind of bother him on his drives. And also, frankly, I didn't think the Lakers did a very good job of getting him the basketball. Even with all of that said, he still finishes the game. He was a net neutral. He played 35 minutes, which is the second, or I guess third most minutes played of any Laker in this one. He grabbed 5 rebounds, had a couple of steals, and I thought down the stretch of the game, I don't think the Lakers win this game, frankly, if Rui plays LaRavia's minutes. And especially if Rui, plays a similar game to LaRavia in that, like, he's not really impacting the game as a scorer. I said this in literally, I think the last show that I recorded. One of my favorite things watching Jake play is how active he is coming from the weak side as an offensive rebounding threat, and the extent to which opposing teams have to pay attention to him, and how that keeps them out of transition, or at least that one player out of transition. When Rui is out there, and especially if he isn't scoring, shot goes up, Rui just kind of starts meandering back. So he is neither getting back with any kind of authority, and he's also never really like threatening the offensive glass, which means that whoever is supposed to be blocking him out, or whoever he needs to beat back down the court, they know, all right, if I really run, Rui probably isn't going to beat me down the court. And I know I can really run because Rui probably isn't going to crash the glass. Whereas when Jake is out there, whoever is supposed to be blocking out Jake actually has to focus on blocking out Jake. And what that leads to is that player, rather than that player kind of starting his leak out as soon as the shot goes up, that player instead kind of has to have a couple of eyeballs on Jake, and thus doesn't get that head start. And even if that player does get a bit of a head start, Jake is one of the better Lakers when it comes to hustling back in transition. So I just, between the activity on defense, the activity on the offensive boards, I think he's a better rebounder overall than Rui is. I just think Jake presents a higher floor. Remember in the last show that I recorded as well, I talked about the Phoenix Suns and the floor that comes with employing a whole bunch of, try hard, physical type, and athletic and long type role players. And if your main superstar is surrounded by those role players, it provides a much higher floor than basically if you try to surround your superstar with a whole bunch of shooting. shooting comes and goes, right? The Lakers shot really poorly in this one. I believe they shot really poorly in the game before this one as well. From 3-point range in this one, they wound up shooting okay percentage wise, 11 of 31. But you look at the guys who were making those threes. LeBron made 3 of them. Luka made 3 of them. The role player guys, right? Like LaRavia went 0 of 2. Marcus Smart went 3 of 7. He made his 3 in a bit of a spurt. But Jared Vanderbilt hasn't made a 3 in a couple of games. Like those, like if your role players, if their job is to make your stars better by way of knocking down open shots, and they aren't knocking down open shots, well, what that means is eventually you ask what else are you able to provide. And I thought that in this one it was pretty clear that what Jake LaRavia and Jared Vanderbilt and all these other guys were able to provide is something, anything, point of attack defense, weak side defense, offensive and defensive rebounding, deflections, steals, heady plays down the stretch. And if it, like with Rui, look, if here's my thing. I think Rui is a more talented basketball player than Jake LaRavia. I just straight up. Like if the two guys were to play, like walk into a YMCA and I had first choice for like most teams, I would probably say, all right, Rui, you're probably on my team. But in the NBA and on this team specifically, I do think that Jake LaRavia is going to wind up being a more impactful player by the end of the season than Rui. And it's because of all of this like other little stuff that Jake is not even more capable of. Like I just think he's wired to do those things, whereas Rui Hachimura isn't. And if there was any way to like rewire Rui and get him to start doing some of that little stuff and get him to be as talented he is offensively, and then also as capable as and potentially impactful as Jake is defensively, now you're talking about a $30 million player. And this is what drives me nuts. It's like, Rui, do you want to make $30 million a year? Like, is that something you want? Because if that's what you want, then you have to do some of this other stuff too. And he just has always been reluctant to do those things. It was funny that the Lakers had a home game in the one before this one. And when you watch League Pass games, you can actually see some of the videos that they play and during the breaks between stoppages of play or during stoppages of play. And there was this video where they were like designing a boy band. And one of the questions in designing this boy band was like, who's the rebel? And everybody said Rui. And the reason that they all said Rui is because like, yeah, he just never listens to anybody. And it's like, yeah, we can kind of laugh and could chuckle about it and stuff in that setting. But it did make me kind of say like, I'm pretty sure JJ Redick just complained about guys not listening. How do you get Rui to listen? And the way that you get Rui to listen is to make him feel like the thing that he treasures most, the thing that all NBA players and professional athletes treasure most, playing time, opportunity, minutes. If you make him feel like if he doesn't commit to the things that you need him to do, that he will lose minutes, he will lose opportunity to somebody in particular, maybe that's the only way you can get through to him. And if you can't get through to him that way, then like I see Omaris asking, is Rui expendable? Fuck yeah, he's expendable. Jake LaRavia probably has proven that. The Lakers have looked perfectly fine without Rui in the rotation. Like Rui got hurt, and I think the Lakers have won. They've won 3 in a row. Is that what I'm looking at here? The Lakers have so Rui got hurt, and Rui got hurt. They've won 3 in a row. It's and look, you want to say like, all right, 2 of the wins came against the Memphis Grizzlies, the other one came against the New Orleans Pelicans. The Memphis Grizzlies, by the way, just beat the San Antonio Spurs. And like I said, I don't think the New Orleans Pelicans lack talent. They got Herb Jones back tonight, by the way, for the first time in like half of a season. I actually thought that like if the Pelicans played the way that they did tonight against everybody else, their record would be quite a bit better. and yet it didn't matter. Like I thought Jake LaRavia was a lot more impactful in these last 3 games. Sometimes it was via shooting, sometimes it was via spacing, and then tonight it was via those little things. And I would rather gamble on Jake LaRavia continuing to provide those little things and raising the starter's floor than like look, because I don't think the Lakers are very confident in Marcus Smart staying healthy enough to be their starter moving forward. That kind of remains to be seen. But if it isn't going to be Smart, I would much rather it be LaRavia than Rui. I think Rui is kind of a distant third place for who I would like to see the Lakers or like to see be the Lakers' fifth starter. Now the question is, as somebody points out, Omar is saying JJ is too soft for what we're talking about here, punishing Rui via opportunity lost. And look, like this is where JJ has to realize he plays a role in the Lakers culture. The Lakers have looked better. The starters have looked better with Jake LaRavia. It's too small a sample size to pull up net ratings and stuff like that with Jake in the starting group. And also they haven't had Austin, which is a completely different variable. But this is where it's going to be interesting. This is one of those tests that JJ Redick has where he's a former player. Players don't like losing. There's a bit of an unwritten rule when it comes to players losing opportunity by way of injury. But I don't think this is injury. I think this is more the Lakers were on a bit of a slide with Rui as the fifth starter, and then Rui got hurt, and like I was calling for Jake to be the starter before Rui got hurt. Then Jake starts starting, and the Lakers kind of turn things around almost immediately, or literally immediately. Um, it makes it a pretty easy kind of open shut case here, you would think. Now, with JJ being kind of a player's coach, and given the way that people high up in the organization feel about Rui Hachimura, maybe that complicates things here. But to me, this is a pretty easy one. Jake LaRavia has shown plenty in a variety of ways to, write his name in pen above Rui's in the rotation. And here's hoping that JJ actually executes that approach. All right, let's go ahead and dive on into some of your guys' questions here. I'll scroll back up to the top. Omar is asking, is LeBron and Luka afraid to step on each other's toes? Like sometimes this team looks leaderless. Yeah, I called that out over the last couple weeks or so. Kind of the Lakers' lack of leadership as it pertains to their star players. I also extended that to the top of the organization and through to Rob Pelinka, and then through to JJ Redick, and then obviously with Luka and LeBron. I do think that's always going to be a bit of a process, but like we've seen, like here's my concern with those guys, because I do think they both are kind of reluctant to step on each other's toes. There's gonna come a time when one of those guys gets frustrated with the other guy's habits, and we've seen a couple of cracks in that regard here with LeBron. One, following the Detroit loss, LeBron called out pick six turnovers, and Luka had a bunch of them in that game, whether they were turnovers, like literal turnovers that are logged as stats as such, or bad shot selection that leads to long rebounds, that leads to leak outs, that lead to buckets. Those, they all fall under the same category to me. And LeBron, after that game, kind of called that out. I thought that was kind of interesting. And then in an episode that he just recorded, I don't know, I'll have to ask. I have some friends there who I'll ask about like the timing of some of their episodes. But LeBron recorded an episode the other day with Steve Nash, and they talked about heliocentric offenses, and LeBron kind of made the point that he thinks that era has slipped by, and now you need to be more dynamic than just your primary ball handler. And like he said that, he used the Lakers as an example of, why that's important, right? And he said how the Lakers start possessions with some type of a pick and roll, but then they also try to build off of it once they get teams in the blender. But that felt a little kind of pointed of like, all right, we need to move the ball. Luka, you're not playing by yourself here. This isn't the Slovenian national team. You have Austin, you have me. Let's be more dynamic than just you on the basketball at all times. And in their own kind of passive aggressive and very LeBronish ways, that felt like, an acknowledgement or just like the beginning of a communication between him and Luca. And like I think he and Luca talk really well when things are going well, but the next step in that relationship is going to be those guys communicating through problems, not sitting on opposite ends of the bench and hoping one guy talks to the other. No, it will take, literally it'll take those guys putting their heads together and being like, "Hey man, we have to figure this out together." And that's the next step that I'm looking to see from those guys. And look, I think tonight, with Luka telling his fans to vote for LeBron, I think that's an important step in that process. Let's just hope that at the end of that process, the pot of gold at the end of that process, at that yellow brick road, is communication, whether things are good or bad. Next question here comes from Super Freak 31. We're playing 8 teams under 500. Why are we not getting Magnon and Buffkin a shot just to see what they provide? They can't be worse than Dalton, who makes a shot, then fouls or gets blown by. Yeah, I saw Dalton back in the group again. I kind of said that Dalton's going to continue to get opportunities because he can shoot. It's just it's a blind spot with JJ and his staff. And maybe this is one of those things where they're like, look, one way or another, we need to figure out what we have in this guy, and maybe we need to prove to him that we will stick by him, whether he makes 37 miscues in a row. Uh, I'm there with you though. I would like to see Magnon, especially during the stretch where the Lakers should be racking up wins here, with this number of games against teams that are under 500. But yeah, and Kamaso was asking, hey Anthony, by what day could Buffkin's prorated salary fit the Lakers cap space? You're probably looking at next few weeks or so. I believe that can be. I don't think that would be what the way that the Lakers use that spot. I think they would. I think that their plan is more to see what happens on the buyout market. There's that rumor of CJ McCollum being traded for Trae Young or vice versa, however you want to frame it. Chris Middleton is also on that Wizards team. Guys like that could potentially be bought out. The Lakers have obviously already benefited from the buyout market with Marcus Smart and with DeAndre Ayton. And I think, and look, like, based on the conversations I've had to this point, and I've made this very clear on the show that I think this is going to be kind of the new normal in the NBA. And I think the Lakers are kind of planning for that. So um, I, I have found it interesting that they converted Drew Timmy, and I don't believe he has played basically at all. And if he has, it's been very, very few minutes here and there. With the parent team, does make me think that maybe it makes more sense to cut him and see if you can get like your third center on the buyout market or whatever. I said at the time that I thought it was a mistake cutting Koloko to convert Timmy, but regardless, I would be fine if they cut Timmy to make Buffkin another two-way player. That said, he's another guard, and the Lakers have Luka, Austin, Smart, Gabe, Bronny, Nick Smith Jr. Like, you don't need that many guards, and unless the Lakers make some kind of a trade to open up a spot for him, I just kind of feel like Bufkin is going to be another one of those players that maybe plays well in the Lakers organization. And his either his opportunity comes a little later than he or we would like, or his opportunity comes with a different team. I believe we've already seen him get a 10-day offer with a different team already. And I think that might happen again before he gets called up and converted with the Lakers. Let's see. Lakers Lab 824. LeBron is a top 5 Laker of all time. Are we just talking players and what players did as players, right? Because, like, to me, West is the greatest Laker of all time, given what he did as a player and then also what he did as an executive and also as a coach. So he's number one for me, is like guys who have ever worn a Lakers uniform, then Kobe, then Magic, and then you have LeBron above Kareem and all the rings that Kareem won for the Lakers. You have him above Shaq, who won more rings than LeBron did. Yeah, it's tricky, man. That's a tough one. And then, I guess technically speaking, Pat Riley wore the jersey, and like, if I don't think I would actually throw him in that conversation, but still, like, you're talking, like, all I'm saying is that the competition for top 5 Lakers ever is really, really tough. Omar is asking, what are you hearing on the rumor mill? Are the Lakers making any trades? Well, so I saw Mark's report the other day that the Lakers are, only interested in using some of their future financial flexibility on players who, quote, move the needle. I fucking hate that cliche. It's like a little more. I hate that cliche. But no, I think they would prefer to start small and see what the market provides as some of these teams align themselves for the deadline of Giannis or the summer of Giannis and all of that stuff. I do think that there are some things that the Lakers would be able to do to improve their team. But in order to go out and get the starter that they pretty clearly need, they need to be willing to move that first round pick. They need to be willing to take on money that extends beyond this year. And I think for those kinds of players, you're looking at the Herb Jones, you're looking at MPJ, you're looking at uh, Trey Murphy, you're looking at Andrew Wiggins. I don't think would qualify to them, but I think falls into that category for me. And all those guys' prices. Wow, where'd that come from? All those guys' prices are higher right now than the Lakers are willing or even able to reach. So that's where I think everything stands right now. Yeah, so Antoine Willis is asking a question that somebody else was asking. Also, hey Anthony, did so Antoine was asking about this. Omar as well. Hey Anthony, did you see the report by Jake Fisher saying Ayton isn't the center of the future? I never thought that Ayton was the center of the future. You guys did? People did? People thought this for a while? I was kind of surprised that this was being talked about or even debated. DeAndre Ayton's a buyout center for a reason. I think he probably slots better, like on a championship level team. I don't think DeAndre Ayton is the starting center. His energy level is too inconsistent. He's not physical enough to be that type of. He's not athletic enough, honestly. Also, like, I think he's certainly starting caliber in the NBA. But when you're talking about the type of center that you need on your team and you're competing for a championship, you're playing against Chet, you're playing against Jokic, you're playing against Wemby, you're playing against, Giannis whenever he's playing at the center. You're playing against Jalen Duren, who is, I think, a significantly better player than DeAndre Ayton. So, yeah, if the Lakers are actually going to, reach the levels that we want them to reach, Ayton can't be the center of the future. I also think that there has been some frustrations with some of the quotes that he's given. I don't believe that the Lakers loved that he was, kind of making fun of JJ Redick when Redick said that he was going to make things uncomfortable on the Lakers. I think some of that stuff can go over well if you're like number one team in the West or number one team in the league. But given where the Lakers were at that moment, I don't think the Lakers loved that. And I think they've seen, some of the inconsistencies that some of the other. Now, look, I do think that this has been a much better DeAndre Ayton than we have seen the last few years. I do think he is a large part of why the Lakers sit where they do right now. They would be completely fucked without him. But, when you're talking about center of the future, that bar has to be really bleeping high, given that you have Luka on your team. When you have Luka on your team, everybody is held to championship standards. So ask yourselves, is DeAndre Ayton championship starting center caliber? Absolutely not. I just don't see it. And, maybe look, maybe that report lights a fire under Ayton. Maybe that report kind of makes him shut down a little bit. But, to the people who are like, how could they leak that? I don't know. Like, I thought that's how we were all like I thought that was the assumption we were all operating underneath, under. Let's go with the next question here. Oh, we have a super comment, which means I get to play this bad boy. Super comment here comes from Laker Pride 6189. Petition to only have Lakers play clutch games this season. Actually, I'm glad Laker Pride that you mentioned this. I'm sorry, my eyes are killing me. I am dying. But I'm glad that you mentioned this. I had meant to bring this up and I wanted to have like a bit of a conversation about the number of minutes that the Lakers have played in the clutch this year. Obviously, I believe this was their 13th win in the clutch, maybe even 14th win that they've had, where they've played clutch minutes. They are undefeated in those games. And while again, that it is frustrating how often they have played in those minutes, I do think it's not necessarily the worst thing to develop the identity and to develop the confidence that comes with, having the success that they have had so far in those games. And this is one of those things that you saw kind of early in the development of the Denver Nuggets a few years ago. And certainly as they were getting ready to win that championship. They were outstanding as a clutch team, and their offense down the stretches of close games was astronomical. Their defense, in those moments and in those minutes, was also fantastic. And they, basically developed like that became a big part of their identity, and they, whenever it got time for those minutes, they just kind of operated as if like, we're here gonna okay, guess it's time to go out and win. And I kind of feel like you watch the Lakers, and when I don't think they literally look, it's like, all right, this qualifies as a clutch game. This means we're gonna win now. But I do think when they get to those minutes and they get into that situation, there that is the closest that we get to their best identity. Now, we'll see how that looks when Austin comes back, and we'll see how that looks when Rui comes back, and we'll see how the rotation looks when those guys are available again. But I do really think that, like, as annoying as it's been for us to sit here and not watch them blow out some of these teams, it's not the worst. It's not a terrible thing for any team to have the amount of confidence going into those, because you're going to play those kinds of games in the postseason. You're going to play those kinds of games, in the march towards the playoffs. Good teams that you play, eventually the Lakers, I do think are hopefully going to close that gap, but I don't think they're ever going to close it to the extent where they are like now so much better than all of those teams, right? So that they don't play clutch minutes against those teams. So they get these reps now in some of these games against lesser teams. That develops an identity, that develops a confidence, and then hopefully that translates to those games that hopefully the Lakers eventually play against better teams. And if that's how this plays out, then it may have been annoying, but it can also have been positive and could have been and can hopefully have been productive. Let's see. We have another question here. Zane 4070 writing, do you think the Lakers should get Justin Champagne for Gabe, Dalton, and a second, then absorb Agbaji's contract since Toronto seems to be done with him? Then you sign Bufkin to provide bench scoring. I talked about the Bufkin thing earlier. I don't really see it for this specific Lakers team right now. Champagne, he's an interesting player for sure. I also like the idea of gambling on Agbaji. Man, what the hell? I think it's like he is really interesting in that he shot the leather off the ball last year or the year before. And that appears to have been a bit of an outlier. Or this is the outlier, and he's not as bad as he was before he fell completely out of the rotation. Um, he is approaching that stage of his career where he's probably going to become a free agent relatively soon. And if you're the Raptors, do you try to get anything for him before he just leaves via free agency? It's not like he's going to sit there and be like, hell yeah, I want to be a Raptor for life, given the fact that I just dropped out of the rotation. So the Raptors, I'm sure he's on the table. I'm sure the Lakers will eventually call about him. Rob Pelinka loves guys with pedigree, and Agbaji was a lottery pick, I believe, at one point, or certainly a first rounder at one point. When he was coming out of Kansas. So I do think Agbaji will be on the Lakers' radar. And if you could somehow convert, Gabe's expiring, I don't think that you would need a second as well in this scenario, but still, if you could convert Gabe's expiring and Dalton being a former first round pick for those two guys, I'd be pretty happy with it. I would keep an eye on that. Put a pin in that one, Zane, and maybe we'll come back to that a little bit later in the year. All right. I think that's going to do it here for this episode of the Lakers Lounge podcast. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. A reminder, please hit that subscribe button. Please hit that like button. Those buttons help us quite a bit. No Raj here tonight because of the early tip-off, but he did promise that he will be on the show tomorrow. So we will hold him to that. So until then, and until the next time you guys hear from me, I'm Anthony Irwin saying, have a great rest of your day. Make somebody else's, and I will talk to you tomorrow. Have a good one, everybody.